Hello Realist crew. I would like to give a special shout out to Tariq Reyhan. He is a part of the Realist crew and a dope singer with a beautiful voice. Check out his new song which is entitled Grown Man and stage performances on his YouTube channel. Subscribe to his YouTube channel which is called Tariq Reyhan. The link to his channel is in the description box below. I know that he will greatly appreciate it. I would like to thank my new subscribers for being a part of the Realist crew. To my subscribers that have been rocking with me from the beginning, thank you so much. I love you all. Now, let's start the show.
All rise. The U.S. District Court for the District of the State of Texas is now in session. The Honorable Judge Victor Abbott presiding. All participants and observers remain standing until the judge is seated. Be seated. Members of the jury, your duty today will be to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty based only on evidence and facts provided in this case. Mrs. West, you can give your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. The evidence in this case will show that on the evening of October 21, 2022, the defendant used a butcher knife to cut off her lover, Eric Chandler's penis, cut out his tongue, stabbed him 5 times in the chest, and slit his throat. After he was killed, she placed his body in his car and drove the car to a construction site. The days leading up to the murder, the defendant poisoned Eric Chandler with thallium. I will present witnesses that will reveal what happened in this case. I will prove beyond a shadow of doubt that this case was a crime of passion. Chandra Brown became enraged when Eric Chandler would not divorce his wife in order to marry her. The defendant is a cold and calculating murderer. All of the evidence will show that she committed this crime. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Murdoch, you can present your opening statement. Thank you, Your Honor. In this case you will have a lot of facts that will add up to Chandra Brown murdering Eric Chandler on the basis of self-defense. The evidence will show that on the evening of October 21, 2022, Eric Chandler and the defendant got into a heated argument. Eric Chandler grabbed a butcher knife and tried to stab Chandra Brown. The defendant managed to get the knife and stabbed Eric Chandler 5 times. Chandra Brown was fighting for her life. Eric Chandler and the defendant had a tumultuous relationship. He abused her verbally, mentally, and physically. Chandra Brown finally snapped. The evidence will show that she did in fact commit this crime, but it was based solely on survival. The defendant fought to live. Thank you.
The state calls Alex Williams to the stand. Mr. Williams, how long have you been a detective?
10 years.
What did you see when you saw the victim's body in his car?
Stab wounds to the chest. His throat was cut.
How did you find out about the victim's penis being cut off and his tongue cut out of his mouth?
The medical examiner relayed that information to me.
Where was the murder weapon found?
In the kitchen. It was inside a drawer.
Where did you find the thallium?
It was in a nightstand drawer located inside the bedroom.
Did Chandra Brown pass the polygraph test?
No.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Williams, what is the accuracy rate of the polygraph test?
Between 88 and 98%.
Isn't it true that the polygraph test measures physical responses and levels of fear, not actual lies?
Yes.
So you can deduce that if Chandra Brown was scared and nervous while taking the test, she could still fail the test even if she were telling the truth.
I object. Mr. Murdoch is speculating.
I will allow it.
Yes, it's possible.
I have no further questions.
The state calls Frank Romano to the stand. How long have you been a medical examiner and forensic specialist?
20 years.
Whose blood was found on the knife that was located in Chandra Brown's home?
Eric Chandler.
Whose DNA was found on the knife?
Both Eric Chandler and Chandra Brown.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Romano, did you collect fingerprints off of the thallium bottle?
No.
Is it possible that someone could have planted that bottle of thallium in the defendant's home?
Yes, it's possible.
I have no further questions.
The state would like to call Astera Chandler to the stand. Did Eric Chandler, your husband, ever abuse you mentally, emotionally, or physically?
No, never.
How was your marriage going before this tragic event occurred?
We had our share of problems because recently I had a miscarriage. We were both grieving.
When did you find out about Chandra Brown being your husband's mistress?
1 month before he was murdered.
During that time did your husband become ill?
Yes, we both thought that he had the stomach flu.
What symptoms did your husband display?
He had bad stomach cramps, nausea, and fever. I begged him to go to the doctor, but he was so stubborn. All he wanted to do was work.
I have no further questions.
Mrs. Chandler, how did you feel when you found out that your husband Eric Chandler was having an affair?
I was in total shock. First, me losing our baby and his affair just made me depressed.
Did you confront Eric Chandler about his affair?
No.
Why not?
Because I was extremely depressed and I didn't know how to save our marriage. I love my husband and I would do anything to have him back.
No further questions.
The state calls Tamara Willis to the stand. How long have you been friends with Chandra Brown?
15 years.
Does the defendant have extreme bouts of anger when she doesn't get her way?
Sometimes.
Did you advise Chandra Brown to end her affair with Eric Chandler?
Yes.
What was her response?
She said that she loved him, that she would never leave him and that she wanted to marry him.
When you would spend time with the defendant, did she tell you that Mr. Chandler physically, mentally or verbally abused her?
No.
Did you ever notice any bruises on the defendant?
No.
I have no further questions.
Isn't it true that Eric Chandler threatened you to stay out of his business in regards to his affair with Chandra Brown?
Yes.
What were his exact words to you?
If you don't stop interfering with my relationship with Chandra, I will kill you.
I have no further questions. You, the jurors, must now decide the fate of Chandra Brown. The defendant was so ashamed and so scared that she didn't tell those who were closest to her what was going on behind closed doors. In mere seconds, she made the choice to protect herself and to save her life. Jury of the court, place yourself in her shoes. Now ask yourself, what would you do in that situation? Find Chandra Brown not guilty due to self-defense because that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Jury of the court, don't let Chandra Brown's innocent looks deceive you. She was never an abused victim. She is a cold, calculating murderer who stabbed Eric Chandler 5 times in the chest. One of those wounds went straight through his heart. She tortured him by cutting off his penis and cutting out his tongue. Lastly, she cut his throat so deep that it nearly decapitated him. If that isn't gruesome enough, then I don't know what is. Mr. Chandler went through hell that night. His death has devastated his family and friends. We can't bring Eric Chandler back, but we can get justice for him. Find Chandra Brown guilty of first-degree murder to prevent this devious femme fatale from killing someone else. Thank you.
Jurors, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor. We find the defendant Chandra Brown guilty in the first degree.
Based on the facts of this crime and the horrific way that Mr. Chandler died, Chandra Brown, I sentence you to death. Court is now adjourned.
No, I'm innocent. You've made a mistake. I didn't do it.
Bailiff Bird, take her away.
No, you can't do this to me. I'm innocent.